From the heart of the Space City to the heart of Gen Z, welcome to Next Gen Conversation. Not Dad's Talk Radio. Ethan talks to you about the issues and events that matter to our generation. This is the Next Gen Report with Ethan Buchanan.
Hey, everybody, welcome. Alrighty, what do we got today? What don't we have? Trump is in trouble again with his base. A bunch of people on the right are pissed off. I'm just going to come out and say it. I think this is much ado about nothing, and we'll explain why a little bit later in the show, so stay tuned. We're going to be talking about all of that. What exactly Donald Trump said to aggravate his base. We're going to be talking about housing, because why not? The deficit, immigration, how all of that kind of comes together and makes life horrible. Before we do all that, I want to talk about Michelle Obama, because she, I think, is the perfect example of victim mentality. She is by no stretch of the imagination a victim at all. The Obamas are rich, very rich. She was the first lady of the United States. That's kind of a big deal. And yet, she still always has some sort of metric by which she has been victimized. I don't understand it. I don't understand how Michelle Obama, of all people, still has all of these things to complain about. Take a listen to this clip. She's on, I believe, some sort of book tour. And she's now upset because of white people and how they make her fix her hair. I'm not kidding. Take a listen to this.
Worry about it. Let me explain something to white people. Our hair comes out of our head naturally in a curly pattern. So when we're straightening it to follow your beauty standards, we are trapped by the straightness. That's why so many of us can't swim and we run away from the water. People won't go to the gym because we're trying to keep our hair straight for y'all.
Right. So that's what it is. All of the ails that African American people face here in the United States come from the fact that white people are making y'all straighten your hair. No, we're not. We're just not. You're the former First Lady of the United States. In that clip, you've got your hair straightened. Who made you do that? Nobody. Who's putting a gun to Michelle Obama's head and saying, straighten your hair? Nobody. Nobody. She could walk out on stage with an afro tomorrow, and she would be worshipped like a goddess for it. Nobody is making you straighten your hair. You're choosing to do that. Nobody is making black people straighten their hair. It's just not happening. It just isn't. And especially you, Michelle Obama. Golly. I mean, the things that she manages to be victimized by, it baffles me to my core. Anyway, let's talk about the shutdown. Enough of that. We've made fun of Michelle Obama for long enough. She's an oppressed black woman, guys. We have to leave her be. Let's talk about the shutdown. I think this article in Fox is interesting. It's by Representative Brian Mass, and he's basically calling out the fact that Democrats have completely screwed themselves on this shutdown. He says in this article, for the last 40 days, the term government shutdown became interchangeable for Democrats with words like leverage or to make a point. And that's obviously true. We've played you the clips on this show of Democrats using all of those words to describe this shutdown. But for millions of Americans, this shutdown wasn't political theater, it was a gut punch. It meant missed paychecks, putting unpaid bills on credit cards with mounting interest, delayed travel, national security risks, and uncertainty about whether the people who protect and serve this nation will get paid on time, if at all. When the government funding ran out due to a Democrat temper tantrum, it wasn't they who immediately felt the pain. It was the air traffic controllers and TSA officers that kept our skies safe. It was the Coast Guard members who patrol our shores and the Border Patrol agents defending our border and the soldiers and sailors standing to watch overseas. They were asked to keep showing up and doing their job while Washington argued over talking points. This is not leadership, it's betrayal. And I think that's a really good point. At the end of the day, Democrats did use the American people as leverage. Now, I was blessed to not really be affected by this. I don't travel by plane ever at all. I never will. Lord willing and the creek don't rise. And I'm not a government employee. So these particular things didn't bother me that much. I'm not on SNAP. I'm not on EBT. I'm not on any welfare program. So these things didn't bother me that much. But there are a lot of people out there who tend to vote Democrat, frankly, who were affected by this. That's going to hurt the Democrat Party. It is. It already is. The polling data is showing this. Here's Real Clear Politics. The Democrat Party has a 58% unfavorability rating right now. That's not good. If you're 58% unfavorable heading into a midterm election that you frankly have to win, that's gonna hurt you. I mean, you don't just walk away from that. You've got to start working those numbers back up real dang quick. And the thing that you had going was the shutdown. Like, make no mistake, their favorability rating didn't just get bad, it got worse. But the shutdown was their plan to make it better. That was what they had in mind. Hey, we're unpopular. We have nothing to run on. Let's just shut down the government. We say we're opposing Donald Trump and fighting for health care, and then making this big tough stand will make us popular again. No, it won't. No, it won't. Because the entire American populace could clearly see that you're doing that just to do it, just to show off. The American people do not enjoy being political pawns. They definitely want you to fight for them if you're a politician, for sure. They want you to be very clearly taking a stand for issues that they care about. But if you're just taking a stand to take a stand to keep yourself in office, and your political ammunition is the American people, that's not going to go over well. This government shutdown has proven that. And just to show you that this is a Democrat problem, here's the Republican Party favorability. 52% unfavorable. It's not much better, but it is better. Notably better. 52% versus 58%. That's a big difference in politics. The Democrats, I'm predicting it now, are going to take a hit on this. The polling is showing that. All right, stay tuned. We got a lot to talk about this evening. We're going to be talking about housing. JD Vance had some very interesting things to say about that. So stay tuned. That's going to be in the next segment. We'll be right back after some advertisements from our sponsors. All right, welcome back to the Next Gen Report. If you enjoy the show, you can catch us not just here on Sundays. We also are very often here Saturday evenings, same time, 7 p.m. Also, there's the podcast, the Next Gen Report, wherever you get podcasts. We do this show, I'm recording it right now as it airs, and then it will be uploaded as a podcast tomorrow morning. So if you missed something, you want to go back, catch it, re-listen to it, hear it again. That's where you can do that. The Next Gen Report, wherever you get podcasts. And of course, we do a bonus episode on Wednesdays. And then there's X @ Ethan Buchanan. Check me out there. All right. Real quick, continuing with the government shutdown talk for just a minute. I think one thing that is a major positive about the shutdown is this did put for the first time a real serious national spotlight on a lot of the benefit and entitlement programs that we have here in the United States, mainly SNAP. And here's the thing. We know there's a lot of abuse here. We do, because it's a federal program. Of course there's abuse. Every federal program has abuse because it's the federal government. They can't do their jobs right to save their lives, all right? No part of the federal government can, except maybe the Marine Corps. But that's just because their only job is break things. But We know there's a lot of abuse and fraud and issues with these programs, but you're never allowed to talk about it because if you do, you're a mean person who doesn't want to feed the homeless. Thankfully, it seems like we've kind of moved past that, and now we're actually allowed to discuss the fact that, like, hey, we got a bunch of illegal aliens and just fat, lazy people that are taking advantage of all this, and we need to do something about that. Here is Brooke Rollins. She is the agriculture secretary. She's in charge of all these programs, saying, hey, I think the Democrats messed up here because these programs that they've arguably intentionally left a bunch of holes in, we now have kind of the political capital that we need to actually fix some of these problems. Here she is saying that. Take a listen.
What the Democrats did not include in their calculation in their insane government shutdown was the fact that this spotlight was going to be shined upon one of their favorite government welfare programs that under Joe Biden increased 40%. Where all that money went, trying to buy elections, we're not 100% sure, but we're rolling it back now. On day one, back in February, for me, we sent a letter to every governor saying, send us your SNAP data. All of this money that the federal government, the taxpayers are paying for food stamps, we don't even know where it goes, what happens, what they're doing with it. And we said no more. So 29 states complied and 20 plus others did not. And we're suing. We're in a litigation right now. But of the 29 that complied, what we have found is staggering. 500,000 people getting benefits 2 times under the same name. 5,000 dead people. 80% of the able-bodied Americans, meaning they can work, they don't have small children at home, they're not taking care of an elderly parent, they can work and they choose not to work, of course, because they're getting significant benefits from the taxpayer. So this light, Laura, that has now been shined on what is perhaps one of the most corrupt, dysfunctional programs in American history that we are working now. Very big announcements coming next week on this. We are cracking down. We now have a plan to fix it, and we're really, really excited about doing that for the American people.
How much money do y'all think that is? Because I guarantee you, it's a lot. 500,000 people are getting benefits twice. 80% of able-bodied Americans that could be working just choosing not to. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. You want to complain about inflation? Where do you think that's coming from? It's coming from the fact that we have these massive federal programs that cost a lot of money, so we're printing money to pay for them. If you really want to make some progress on inflation, start tackling things like this. These, multi-billion dollars at a time waste. Let's cut down on that. Let's cut that out of the budget. I think that'll make everybody happy in the long run. I mean, not the lazy people who don't want to have to work. They're not going to like it. But for everybody else who now our paychecks feel like they're more, they might not be more, but they feel like they're more because you can buy more, because inflation slowed down, because we don't have to print as much money, because our federal budget is smaller. I mean, this isn't controversial, but it'll become controversial the moment some bleeding heart leftist says, oh, but what about the poor people? What about them? That's not what we're talking about here. There's a time to talk about that, and believe me, we will. Right now, we're talking about the people who could be working but aren't. The 5,000 dead people. And that's just the ones we know about. I've said this time and time again. That's just the ones we know about. There are a lot more. Remember, only 29 states gave us this information. Only 29. In just those 29 states, we found so far 5,000. Now, you might say, oh, just 5,000. That's not that many. This is a country of hundreds of millions of people. 5,000, well, that's barely a drop in the bucket. Frankly, I don't care. One is too many. And that's my argument of why we shouldn't have these programs at all. They cannot be administered properly at a scale this big. It's just not possible. There will always be fraud, and I don't think any amount of fraud should be accepted. If you can't do this without it being wasted on people who are dead or shouldn't have it, then don't do it. That shouldn't be as controversial as it is, but whatever. All right, let's talk about immigration. This story out of Kansas blew my mind. Kansas mayor charged with illegally voting just days after winning re-election. The mayor of a small Kansas town who cruised to re-election this week has been charged with voting illegally. Well, you might ask yourself, how did the mayor get to a point where he's voting illegally? Does he have some sort of felony or something on his record that would prevent him from voting? Jose Cabellas, 54, won re-election in Coldwater, Kansas on Tuesday. The next day, Kansas Attorney General Chris Kobach charged Cabellas with voting in multiple elections illegally, saying he's not a U.S. citizen. What are you talking about? Cabellas, who was first elected mayor in 2021, that's 4 years ago, was charged with 3 counts of voting without being qualified and 3 counts of election perjury for 3 elections in November 2022, November 2023, and August 2024. In Kansas, it is against the law to vote if you are not a U.S. citizen. We allege that Mr. Cabellas did it multiple times. Cabellas is a legal permanent resident of the United States, according to the Attorney General. So, legal permanent resident and U.S. citizen are very different things, all right? Completely different, actually. One is just, hey, you're allowed to stay here. You can stick around. We're not even going to put a time limit. But you are not a U.S. citizen. You do not have full rights and privileges of U.S. citizens. You cannot vote in our elections. You are a foreign national. You are a citizen of another country. You are not an American. You cannot vote in our elections. This guy not only allegedly voted 3 times, but he somehow managed to be an elected official in this town. Do you understand what has happened here? Americans are being governed by foreigners. Why? How have we gotten to this point? Is this what our founding fathers died for? I would argue that no, it's not. My ancestors did not fight war after war after war just for American citizens to be governed at home by foreigners. And this guy is a foreigner. That's not racist or mean to say. That is a legal fact. He is a foreigner. How does this happen? How did the people of this Kansas town elect a foreigner to govern them? How is that allowed? We have got to take some serious long looks about immigration and why we're doing it and whether or not it's actually benefiting us. Because there's a strong case to be made that it's not. It could be. We could use it, right? That's what we're going to talk about in the next segment. But right now we haven't been. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. I think it's fair to say that mass immigration, as we've seen it worked out over the last several years, is obviously not in the best interests of the United States of America and the American people. For example, American citizens being governed by foreigners. Literal, honest-to-God foreigners. As we talked about in the last segment. If you missed it, if you're just tuning in now, check back at the podcast tomorrow morning. We'll dig into that, or we dug into that, and you can re-listen to it. But that's obviously not in our interest, and I could talk for hours about how that's obviously not in our interest. But another reason this sort of mass migration that we've seen is not in our interest is it makes it difficult for Americans to live our lives. As much as you want to sit and say, oh, this doesn't affect me. I live in so-and-so, or I live wherever, or I just have an open heart and want all the cultures to come experience America. At the end of the day, it is going to affect you, and probably when you go to buy a house. That's what we're going to talk about again. I've talked about this several times, but I have to keep talking about it because for whatever reason, a bunch of people my age don't have the mental capacity to connect these two obviously connected dots between mass immigration and housing prices. So once again, I'm going to cite the same data from the Chamber of Commerce. This is from updated September 3rd, 2025, originally published in March. So this is recent. This is this year. From the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, housing has long been a cornerstone of the American dream and a vital component of the nation's economy. That's obviously true. We all have heard the old cliche about the American dream is the nice house, the white picket fence, la-di-da-di-da, and the economy. A big part of being able to build up a net worth and have plenty of money is the ability to buy an asset that just appreciates really well, like a house, and pay that off and have your housing situation handled for the rest of your life. That's a big part of, moving up financially. Yet the U.S. housing market is severely strained due to a fundamental imbalance between supply and demand. So, just in case I have a bunch of economically illiterate people listening right now, and I don't think that's the case. I think you, my listeners, are the smartest listeners. I have the great listeners. Everybody always says the Next Gen Report has the best listeners. But on the off chance that you're not a regular listener and you're economically illiterate, supply and demand. Supply, demand. Wherever those two lines cross, that's where your price is. All right? So what is the demand in the housing market? A severe shortage of over 4.7 million homes. That's where the demand is right now. We have 4.7 million fewer homes than what we need, which has created a cascading economic and social challenge from skyrocketing prices to reduced workforce mobility. That's obviously true. Hey, I want to go get a better job. There's a really good job in another town. There's nowhere to live there. That's out of the question. You can't go work somewhere where you can't live unless you want to have a 4.5-hour commute. If I'm working in X industry and 4 towns over, there's a great job opportunity in my industry, but there's nowhere in that town to live because of the housing deficit, that's a problem. So there's obviously multiple causes to this, right? I mean, one, the big one, or a big one. They're both big ones. There's 2 big ones. One, regulation. It's really expensive and it takes a really long time to build housing, primarily because of regulation. You have to jump through a whole lot of hoops in order to get a house built. Some of that regulation is good, right? There is some need to say, hey, if you're building a house and putting it on the market, you've got to meet these basic livability standards. You have to be able to make sure that this house isn't just going to cave in on itself after a year and a half. The first time a sour wind blows through, if this house just falls over because you built a piece of crap house, that's a problem. Some regulation is needed there. But also, there's a lot of regulation that's probably not needed. We don't need to do an environmental survey about what type of mouse is going to be killed when you build a house in a field. It's just not necessary. The mouse will make it or it won't. It's called natural selection. Look it up. Rest in peace to the mouse. I don't care. We need houses. The other big one is mass migration. When we have Americans competing with 10 million illegal aliens for housing, and we're already short on housing, what do you think that does to the prices? It shoots them up. These people shouldn't even be in this country, and now they're significantly negatively impacting the price of housing. J.D. Vance is calling this out. Here he is saying this. This is an interview with Fox, and he's sitting here saying, hey, we've got 30 million illegal aliens in this country. I don't know where exactly he's getting that 30 million number. It's really hard to nail down exactly how many illegal aliens are here. I'm confident in saying there's at least 11 million. Again, even that number, if we deported just 10 million, that would solve the housing deficit, I think, to a certain degree. But he's saying 30 million. That's even worse. Take a listen to him calling this out.
I know that there are a lot of people out there, Sean, who are saying things are expensive. And we have to remember they're expensive because we inherited this terrible inflation crisis from the Biden administration. But you've already seen signs that things are getting better. The price of eggs has gone way down. The price of energy has gone way down. The price of gasoline has gone way down. And as we know, when the price of energy goes down, that starts to filter out into the entire economy, but that also takes a little bit of time. There's another component of this, Sean, which to me is maybe the most important because I care so much about our young people being able to afford a good life. A lot of young people are saying housing is way too expensive. Why is that? Because we flooded the country with 30 million illegal immigrants who were taking houses that ought by right go to American citizens. And at the same time, we weren't building enough new houses to begin with, even for the population that we had. So what we're doing is trying to make it easier to build houses, trying to make it easier to build factories and things like that so that people have good jobs. We're also getting all of those illegal aliens out of our country, and you're already seeing it start to pay some dividends.
All right. So he's being fairly reasonable, I think. Like, hey, these houses should be going to Americans. Americans are having to compete with a whole bunch of illegal aliens for them. That's not a healthy system. Now, we could just build a bunch more houses. Okay, that's going to take a long time. It's going to take a very long time to build almost 5 million, if not more, units of housing. That's not an easy thing to do, especially with the regulation, which is what J.D. Vance is calling out there. Alex Tabarrok, I don't know who this guy is. He says, J.D. Vance thinks like a commie. Look at the language. Illegal immigrants are taking houses that by right ought to go to Americans. If homes are a fixed pot that the government allocates to a deserving class and the U.S. sellers blank out, zero-sum central planner thinking. No, that's not what this is at all. This is a complete misread of what J.D. Vance is saying here. J.D. Vance isn't saying these houses by right ought to go to Americans because it's a centralized resource that the government gets to allocate. He's saying these houses ought to go to Americans because they're in America. Right? This didn't used to be controversial. This is the United States of America. These houses are in America. These houses should belong to Americans. Now, if by the time every American that can afford one through their own hard labor gets one and is ready to go and set, and we have a bunch left over, then let's say, hey, maybe can we bring in some immigrants that are going to be beneficial to the United States and assimilate and become American citizens and let them, through the fruits of their own labor, buy some of these houses. But that's got to be after. If American citizens can't afford to buy houses in the country that their ancestors fought and died for because they're having to fight with 10 million illegal aliens who should not be here, that's a problem. It's not communist to say that. There's an argument to be made that it's a little bit nationalist. That's fine. That's fine. We should be putting Americans and the American people first. How do we make sure America is the most prosperous nation to the benefit of American people? I'm not talking about just abstract GDP. I'm talking about making sure Americans can live a good life if they work hard. This doesn't necessitate government handouts, but it does necessitate the government do their job and protect us from an invasion of illegal immigrants who aren't going to assimilate, who shouldn't be in this country, who frankly don't like this country very much, but recognize we're a better economy, so they're going to come here and they're going to suck us dry, which is what's happening. Objectively, that's what's happening. And they're taking up housing that American citizens should get. That's obviously true. It takes a significant level of cognitive dissonance, intentional cognitive dissonance, to deny that objective reality. I'm glad the vice president is calling this out. We're going to be talking a lot more about this in our last segment, so stay tuned. We'll be right back with more of the Next Gen Report in just a minute. All right, let's continue with our little chat here about housing and immigration. I had seen someone on Twitter point out to his credit, obviously true fact that, illegal immigrants aren't going and buying up massive, $200,000 to $400,000 homes. That's true. That's clearly true. And credit to this guy for pointing that out. He tried to use that as an argument that, like, oh, clearly because illegal immigrants aren't buying up, 3-bed, 2-bath houses, that means that they're not really a strain on the housing supply. No, you've missed the point. They are a strain on things like apartments, really small starter homes, things like that. 2-bed, 1.5-bath, teeny tiny starter homes, and, apartments, even low income housing, Section 8 type housing. They are a strain on that supply, right? And so that complicates things. It does. When people can't get a starter home, they start looking at, higher homes. That you're increasing the demand of higher level, not starter homes, but maybe mid-level to even nicer homes. There's more demand for that. We can't build those fast enough. And then, of course, if you're just starting out, if you're just looking for a decent apartment, there's not as much of that around because the illegal aliens are grabbing them up. If you're really low income and you're looking for Section 8 housing, you might be having a harder time getting that because the illegal immigrants are using Section 8 housing. Here is Scott Turner talking about this. The illegal immigrants are obviously a strain on the housing supply. They're also a strain on government programs like Section 8, other welfare type programs. They are using them. They're not supposed to be. The left will tell you they aren't. Here's Scott Turner. He would know. He's the Housing and Urban Development Secretary. He's saying, yeah, actually 58%, 59% of these illegal alien households are taking advantage of these programs. Take a listen.
Over 12 million illegal aliens came into our country, which has put a great strain on our housing supply and affordability. During the Biden administration, Sandra and John, the housing policies, the open border policies, the economic policies were weak and really just deflated housing in our country. And so we've been working very hard at HUD to help with affordability. Number one, taking down burdensome regulations that have crippled development and crippled building in our country. And you talk about illegal aliens in our country, 59% of illegal alien households use one or more welfare programs in our country. And that costs us about $42 billion. And so just that alone is a tremendous strain. But there's good news on the horizon, as you've seen and reported. Regulations are coming down. Inflation is coming down. Mortgage rates are coming down. I believe right now mortgage rates are about 6% or a little bit above, which is 12% lower than the president when he came into office.
So obviously there's strain here. Now, does that mean that all immigration is bad? No, not necessarily. Here's my position on this, and I've had several conversations with a lot of different folks about this. We need to, at least for the time being, essentially stop all in-migration with maybe some key exceptions because we got to get a handle. We got to deport a lot of people, and we got to slow down the inflow, even of legal immigrants, just because we don't have the housing supply. If for no other reason than that one. We don't have the housing supply. So let's shut the door for a little bit, figure this situation out. And then, like I said earlier, once we've got Americans taken care of, we can look at, can we bring in some people that are advantageous to us and will benefit and become Americans? Donald Trump has been making this point. He thinks that, maybe we should be doing some of that, bringing some key people in now. There's an argument to be made for that. There's an argument to be made against it. Here he is saying, and it got a little contentious with this Fox News host, Laura Ingraham. He's saying, hey, we actually do need some H-1Bs, some H-1B visa holders to come in and do some work for us. I want you to play what he said. He kind of gets into I'm going to play it for you. I'm going to let you listen to it. He gets into a little bit of a spat with Laura Ingraham. And this has caused a lot of people on the hard right to be very upset with Donald Trump. I think a lot of that is overblown. We've talked a lot about the bad immigration. There is bad immigration. We need to stop it. Now we're going to dig into a little bit some of the good immigration. And to kick that off, here's Donald Trump.
There's never going to be a country like what we have right now.
And does that
the
mean
Republicans have to talk about it, Laura.
And does that mean the H-1B visa thing will not be a big priority for your administration? Because if you want to raise wages for American workers, you can't flood the country with tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of foreign workers.
You also do have to bring in talent. When
we have plenty of talented people here.
No, you don't.
We don't have talented people here?
No, you don't have certain talents, and people have to learn. You can't take people off.
Now, a lot of people on the right are taking that one clip and going bananas at Donald Trump here. I want you to pay very close attention to what he said. We don't have certain types of talent. That's obviously true. All right? There's certain things that we just don't do in the United States or haven't done for a long time. Continue.
An unemployment line and say, I'm going to put you into a factory where we're going to make missiles, or I'm going to put
How did we ever do it before?
Well,
I'll
give you an example. In Georgia, they raided because they wanted illegal immigrants out. They had people from South Korea that made batteries all their lives. You know, making batteries are very complicated. It's not an easy thing and very dangerous. A lot of explosions, a lot of problems. They had like 500 or 600 people, early stages, to make batteries and to teach people how to do it.
All right, so that's the point that he's making. We're trying to get into building things that are global resources, things like microchips, things like batteries. Electric car batteries is a big one. He cites that case of the Hyundai plant in Georgia where they had a bunch of illegal immigrants from South Korea that were working in this factory here in the United States. Now, he's completely correct. There is certain levels of precision manufacturing for specific products that we in the United States want to get into, that we should get into, but we just don't have the skill set, the average American worker, just because we haven't done it. Microchips have for a long time, very vast majority of microchips have been made in other countries, not by Americans. And that's precision manufacturing. That's not just your standard manufacturing where you can put a guy on a line and say, hey, as the part comes, you twist that knife and send it down the line. We just haven't done precision manufacturing like this in the United States. We haven't. We want to get into that, but that's going to require skill sets we don't have. So what do? We bring in small numbers of H-1B visas. That's a temporary work visa to teach Americans how to do that job so that Americans can get those good paying jobs. And then we send the H-1Bs back. We bring the H-1Bs in for a little bit, have them teach Americans to do something we haven't done. And when Donald Trump says we don't have that talent, he's right. We don't. We can get it, we can learn it, but we've got to learn it first. We need teachers for that. That's true. Now, people have been taking that clip and saying, oh, Donald Trump is no longer MAGA. He says America doesn't have any talent and we need to bring in H-1Bs to do manufacturing. That's not what he's saying. He's saying we don't have specific talents, which is obviously true. And Laura Ingram says, well, how did we do it before when you and I were growing up? Good question, Laura. We didn't. You think there was mass amounts of electric vehicle manufacturing in the 40s and 50s when you and Donald Trump were growing up? There wasn't. We have never done those things here in the United States. We've done manufacturing in the United States. That got offshored. It was offshored 50 years ago. That's a long time. There's obviously going to have to be some relearning of skills. I think H-1Bs could be used in small numbers to actually benefit the United States of America. And we shouldn't shun that. Now, there's fatigue because the system has been abused. That's obviously true. But just because the system has been abused doesn't mean that we can't look at this. Okay, this program is designed to help American manufacturing, American business. Let's see if we can actually use it to do that. Donald Trump is correct here. Could he have said it better? Probably. But hey, there's many such cases. All right, we'll be back on Wednesday with the podcast. Give us a listen there and follow me on X @_Ethan Buchanan. Thank you very much for listening to the Next Gen Report.